Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. So the suspect, the person suspected of gunning down the mob boss, Frank Cali, Frankie Boy Cali, in Staten Island. I think it was last Wednesday night around 9:30. Was in court today, and he was exhibiting some pretty strange, bizarre behavior. You know, first off, he just didn't seem to be worried at all. He's smiling and yawning. And he also had stuff written on his hand, which I don't understand the meaning of exactly, other than maybe he's just trying to have fun and capture some media attention because he basically assumes he's totally screwed. I really don't know. Supposedly he was characterized sort of as a knucklehead. You know, that was the big shock, that this guy has no mob ties, nothing. This had nothing to do with the mafia. It wasn't a new war within the mob, the New York mob starting or anything like that. Just some guy, part-time construction worker, something like that, lives with his parents. I think he's 24 years old, and he was interested in Frank Cali's niece. And I think maybe even had dated her briefly, if at all. I don't know. But Frank Cali supposedly disapproved of it and told him to back off and wouldn't allow the relationship, something like that. So that's why, supposedly, that's his motive for gunning him down. And I'll get to a description of what happened that night very quickly, just so you're aware, even though everybody knows pretty much by now. The New York Times has a pretty good, fairly detailed description of what happened. But again, he was just it was a very strange court appearance. And so he wrote MAGA all over his hand. MAGA Forever, United We Stand. That says Patriots in Charge, MAGA Forever, and then the ring in the middle. I'm not sure, if that's just doodling or what, probably. And there's video of him in court. It's so strange, But here's the video.
Give me a question. Mr. Comello, do you understand those rights?
Yes, sir.
All right, anything further?
Counsel, defense counsel.
You want to explain something for the rest? Yes, I did, Judge.
Yes.
I have been in contact with New York counsel Robert Gottlieb from Gottlieb and Jennings.
So, even just that, it's just it's a sight to see. Watching him just seem to not sweat the situation whatsoever. And authorities are concerned, for sure that, he may have a target on his back when he eventually gets to prison. I don't know where he's being. Well, this was actually an extradition hearing. He was in his Jersey home, a summer home, I believe. I don't know if that's his parents or what, where he was arrested. He's going to be extradited to the Staten Island, where the crime occurred. That's where Frank Cali lived. It was at his own home, and. They're concerned that eventually when he does get to prison, after the trial, that he could be, he could be a target, for retributions. He doesn't seem to mind too much there, though. And like I said, the previous neighbor accounts and stuff of him of just sort of being kind of like a nice guy, but like a nut, like just a total knucklehead, And one guy said he was always nice, never had a problem with him. I think he liked to light off fireworks in the middle of the night. He might have to, and he might tell him, "Listen, my kids are sleeping. You got to stop that." And he would stop, and that's it. So I don't know. It's pretty strange. Watching him sort of just kind of the way he was in that courtroom, it's totally crazy. Here he is smiling, and for somebody that gunned down, the boss of the, one of the most notorious crime families in New York, it's pretty remarkable. That's his original booking photo. That's the hand with stuff written on it. Again, I assume he's just having some fun while he, while he's in the limelight, and he kind of, I don't know, assumes he's toast anyway, so might as well. So over at the New York Times, just so you're aware, 2 law enforcement officials said Mr. Comello, Anthony Comello is the dude's name, had no criminal history, but had nonetheless come to the attention of law enforcement before. He had no record except for like driving, traffic violations, and I think even the day he actually committed the supposedly or allegedly committed the crime, they had a traffic citation or something, summons had been issued for traffic tickets or parking tickets or something, unpaid parking tickets. Sometime in recent years, though, his strange behavior in a federal courthouse led the United States Marshal Service to briefly take him into custody and ask the police department's intelligence division to check its records to determine if he had any history of terroristic threats. Neither of the officials had any details about the specific nature of his behavior, but both said no such history could be found. So that's just the only thing that came up that was in his background that was of a criminal nature, and I don't even know what that's in reference to. Nobody seems to, but I've seen that reported in multiple places. The actual incident, around 9:17 p.m. Wednesday, a pickup truck driven by Comello, he backed into Frank Cali's car. That's what he backed in, smashed into it, and reversed into it. And then he actually went up to the door himself. I mean, I'm going to paraphrase before I read this. And Frank came out. Supposedly they talked. This is all on surveillance. I believe Frank Cali probably has surveillance cameras at his own home. I believe that's how they picked this up. Even though they didn't know who the dude was until it was because of the print left on the license plate that he gave Frank Cali. So after they talked for a minute, and I assume at that point Frank Cali knows who he is because he's the one who disapproved of him not seeing his niece, who was in the home. They were having dinner, and so they talk for a minute and shake hands, and then he literally hands him the license plate that had fallen off from him backing. Anthony Comello hands it to Frank Cali, the license plate, which left his own fingerprint on the license plates. That's how they were able to track this dude down, was from that partial print on the, or one print on the license plate. Frank Cali turns around to put it into the back of his SUV, which I believe that, the hatch was open at that point, and then he pulled out his pistol and I don't even know what kind of firearm it was. It was a handgun, and just started shooting away. Shot him 10 times, and I believe, as soon as Frank Cali went to the ground, it was described that he tried to get underneath his own SUV to avoid being shot, which I think he did, avoid being shot more, but he was already hit 10 times. It didn't matter. He died either died at the hospital or died on the way to the hospital. I believe he died at the hospital. So around 9:17 p.m. on Wednesday, a pickup truck driven by Mr. Comello backed into Mr. Cali's parked Cadillac Escalade, damaging it. He then walked up to the door of Mr. Cali's Hilltop Terrace home and rang the bell, where law enforcement sources said his face was caught on video. All right. Mr. Cali and Mr. Comello spoke for roughly a minute in a conversation also recorded by surveillance cameras and reviewed by investigators. The footage showed that Mr. Comello, dressed in a hooded sweatshirt and a baseball cap, bent down and picked up a license plate that had fallen off the Escalade. Fingerprints from the license plate were recovered, according to Chief Shia, but it was unclear what the forensic evidence revealed. Mr. Cali took the license plate and walked back to his car, where he placed it in the rear. At that moment, the gunman pulled out a 9mm pistol and fired 12 times. Officials said Mr. Cali was shot multiple times, resulting in 10 bullet wounds. Chief Shia said the truck Mr. Comello drove was recovered on Saturday morning in New Jersey. The handgun used to kill Mr. Cali has not been found. All right, man. Well, that's the story there, dude. That is the story there. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.